Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, aka the Football History Dude, and I'm here to tell you about an awesome way for you to rub elbows with your favorite podcast hosts here on the Sports History Network, while at the same time rooting for your hometown team this upcoming NFL season. You've been hearing all about our partner, Tailgate Fantasy, the past few weeks. Well, dig on this. Tailgate created a special Sports History Network league for our listeners, so we can put the word fan back into fantasy football together. It's free to join, and if you do so before the season kicks off, you'll automatically be entered into a drawing for a free t-shirt from one of our other partners, Home Field Apparel. It's a win-win-win! So hurry up today and head to sportshistorynetwork.com/tailgate for all the details. Again, that's sportshistorynetwork.com/tailgate.
Hello, sports fans, and welcome to another edition of Yesterday's Sports on the Sports History Network. Today's guest is two-time national weightlifting champion Mike Listro. Mike was also a teenage national champion in 1984 and holds a total of 5 New Jersey records in 2 different weight classes. I had the pleasure of training with Mike for a couple of years back in the 1980s, and if you were going to train with Mike, you better come prepared because it was pedal to the metal, 100% all-out maximum effort on every lift. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Thank you.
Good to have you. So, Mike, what got you interested in Olympic weightlifting?
Well, it was kind of like 2 things. I watched back in 1977, it was a movie, Rocky. Rocky came out, Rocky 1, and that kind of got me started with the weights, okay?
Right.
And so that inspired me. I was like 13 years old. But then the next year, I watched the Senior Nationals and I think they were in York, Pennsylvania in 78. And it was on Wide World of Sports. And when I saw it, I said, wow, I definitely, want to do that. So I had I didn't have the Olympic weights. I had like the free weights, like the bar was maybe 15, 20 pounds. And I was training on that.
Right.
And I started, basically, I got Strength and Health. And with those articles in Strength and Health, I basically taught myself and used a lot of their training tools, articles on guys, and used their methods to basically do routines and stuff.
Right. Okay. So in your early years of competing, well, tell us that story about you said you went to a meet as a spectator, and the next thing you knew, you were competing the next day.
Yeah, my dad took me. It was in 1980. It was before my first competition. It was a meet in Belleville. Okay, and Bucky Cairo was the coach of the Belleville Barbell Club, and so I came down there to watch. And then after the competition was over, I remember we were in the back room, and it was 40 kilos on the bar, and he goes, "Show me what you got." So I took it. I was about 114 pounds, 52 kilos back then, and he goes, "Wow, you got pretty good technique." And he goes, "Do you have a coach?" I said, "No, I just coach myself." He goes, "Well, there's a meet in McBurney tomorrow. Would you want to go?" I said, "Yeah, sure." And I competed in that meet, and I remember I was overweight. I don't even think I had an AAU card, and I ran into Rudy Sablo. And he gave me such a hard time. I was almost in tears. And but they let me compete, and I was overweight, 52 kilo. And I think my first lifts, were 60 and 82. 60 kilo snatch, clean jerk 82, and the total was 142, and I won. And I won first place. And the rest, basically after that, I became obsessed, and Bucky became my coach.
Okay. And then you competed in a lot of the Junior Olympics and also teenage nationals. So,
Yeah, my first Junior Olympics was in Waterloo, Iowa. That was in
right.
1980. And we drove in a station wagon 24 hours
Oh
with
my
Butch. Oh, it was insane. With Butch Toth driving,
God.
and I don't know who else. There was another guy driving. We had Kenny Rapak, John Hoffman. We picked up Kurt White on the way there. It was insane. We all in one car. And, but I had a great meet, and I wound up tying for first place against Nephi Judd. I did 67.5 and 92.5, all PRs, and totaled 160. But since I was like, I think it was about maybe a pound heavier than him,
Right,
he won first place.
right. That
Good.
was a
Yeah.
tiebreaker.
Tiebreaker. Yeah.
Yep,
Yep.
yep. So then tell us about your experience of lifting in the, you lifted in the 1983 Junior Pan American Games.
Yeah, the Pan American Games were, I believe they were out in Colorado Springs, if yes. And by that time, I was 67.5, and I competed against, I think I got third place. Couture, I can't remember his first name, got first. Jeff Mormel got second, and I got third. I did 107 and 132, and that was at 67.5. So that was kind of my first big international meet, and I got to stay at Colorado Springs as well.
Oh, all right. So
Yeah.
you're
That,
now in 1985, you move up to the 75 kilo weight class, and
Well,
you
the one thing I wanted to tell you,
sure,
the biggest thing that in '83 also, I went to the Teenage Nationals and I got fourth place, and it was in Minnesota, and I
uh,
was really really upset. I don't think I put that in my notes. And I did 100 kilos and 135, 235 for fourth place. I got destroyed. I wasn't happy. I remember talking to my parents on the phone, and I was just really unhappy. And it gave me, for the next year, the '84 Nationals, I trained like a maniac.
right.
I, and I wound up winning that. And that was in Ohio. I snatched 110 kilos, clean and jerk 142, and totaled 252 for first place. And miss going to the Junior Worlds by 5 kilos, which
Oh,
would have been in Italy. That was 257.5. That was basically my last year as a teenage national. So I just
right.
wanted to throw that out there.
Teenage nationals, and then
Yeah,
you're
so I was a
only 5 kilos away from the junior
yeah,
world. Holy man!
Junior World. And Mark, the next year they changed all the totals. They lowered the totals and you took like a full team. And I was like, you got to be kidding me.
You missed it. You missed it by a year. Yeah,
Right.
you missed it by 1 year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, 1985, you move up to the 75 kilo weight class, and
Yeah.
you qualified for your first senior nationals.
Yes.
Not
And
only qualified, but no, I'll let you tell the story. Go ahead.
yeah, I qualified for the Nationals, and it was in Washington, D.C. And I remembered that during the time, the in the warm up room, there was this big thing about putting powder on your thighs, and I
Right.
always liked putting the powder on the thighs, and it was illegal, but it made the bar go up easier.
Yeah.
And they were on me like stalking me, and that, I think that affected me a lot because I snatched 120, clean jerk 150, and total 270 for third place. I because I did some nice lifts in training.
Right.
I think I did 55 and 25 in training, which probably would have won first place. But I wound up John. Trying to think who won first. John Orlando won first. Jim Holt won second, and I won third for my first national championship.
Well, that's quite an accomplishment.
Thank you.
And then, well, let's see. So then, the following year, 1986, you really make it to the big time, and you qualified for your first international competition, and that was in Hungary, right?
Yeah, that was for the Panoia Cup, and that's where I saw the likes. I was in the same elevator as Mikhail Petrov and Naim Sulaimanev.
Wow, how about that?
It, and if you looked at these guys, you would think they could lift nothing.
Right.
But when I saw them lift on stage, they were like, it was like amazing,
Yeah,
truly. And they weren't in the best of shape, but they still put up some nice weights.
right, right. And then, so we go to 1987. You left in the Montreal Cup. You placed second.
Yes, I placed second in that meet, and that was a meet that I got chosen for, and I snatched 122.5, and I clean and jerk 162.5 for the 285 total. Now during that time, what was happening was, um, I when I first to go back a little, I first trained by myself, and
Right,
then I went to Belleville to train, and then when I started driving, then I went to started training at West Orange.
right.
I think, and I think I met you there, and I met George. George was training there, and we had Dan Dvorak, Dave Dvorak, a whole bunch of guys. Wunteljewski. So we trained there, and then from West Orange, then from there. We went to Saint Cecilia. No. Then it was back to Belleville,
Right, right,
training with yourself. I was training with Mike Rinaldi.
right.
We'll get up to him, and
Yeah,
then we'll get from there. I'll tell you what happened from there.
right. We had quite a few good lifters there. John Hoffman, George
Yeah.
Segura, we had Dave Gotzel.
Yes.
Yeah,
God rest his soul.
yeah, that was a shame.
That was tragic. Yep.
Yeah. And then 1987, you also won another medal at the nationals, right?
Yes, I lifted in Lavona, Michigan, and I wound up this was my actually my third nationals, and I got third place. The year before in '86, I got fourth place, but I increased my clean and jerk to 157.5, which was a PR, and my 280 kilo total was a PR as well. So PRs in weightlifting, even if they're a quarter of a pound, we take it.
Right. You're right about that. Now, wow, so 1987 is a really big year for you because then you qualified for the under 23 European tour.
Yes. Let me get my notes on that. Yeah, that was, and mind you, this whole time I was working at the post office. I only had 3 years in the post office. So, I'm getting chosen to all these meets. But as long as I say that, I am competing for the U.S. team,
Right.
it was like they had to let me go. Now, this thing was 21 days. And basically in the middle of the summer, people are picking primetime vacation, and they're like, "You're going to let this guy go again?" And they said, "Well, this guy's lifting
Right.
in a junior European tour, and we got to let him go because he's competing for our country,"
Right. Right.
which was a big thing. So, but I competed in four meets. One was Sweden, where I got first place. I did 127.5 and 160. And then Germany, I got first again. I did 125 and 152. Then France was crazy because I remember this like it was yesterday. We're all in the warm up room, and my snatches, everything's going great. I'm looking at the bar, and my snatches are great. I get on the platform, and there's a different bar.
Oh,
And,
wow.
and I'm looking, and I'm like, where am I going to grab it? So my first snatch, I almost dislocated my elbow. I was like this wide.
Right.
I was like, but somehow, some way, I went 3 for 3. I went 22, 27, 130
Right.
in
Okay.
the clean and in the snatch. In the clean and jerk, I did 55, 60, and I think I missed 62.5. I don't remember, but I totaled 290. So that was a nice accomplishment. And then in England was the last part of the tour. I did 25 and 55. But competing in all these meets in 21 days was like, wow. It
Yeah.
was, constant 100% all the time.
Yeah. That's got to be tough.
Yeah, it was tough.
But so the hand spacing on the bar was different than the bar in the warm-up room.
Yeah, and usually I take it for a given that it's the same. And when I
Right.
got out there, I'm looking at the coach. He's looking at me, and he's got to look like I was like, could you give me like a tape measure?
Yeah. I learned to. That happened to me one time, and from that time on, I learned to keep a tape measure in my gym bag.
Yep.
That in case it happened, I could just take out the tape measure and measure the bar.
Yeah.
So now this is another one? Is this in 1987 again? You competed in the under 23 nationals?
Yes, that was where basically I qualified for the trials. That was in Connecticut, and I snatched 130 and I clean jerk 165, and I told 295. And that, who held that meet? The guy from Connecticut. I can't remember his name. Big guy.
Frank Gankars.
There you go. Yep. And I had one of my best meets there, and I qualified. That was on September 19th, 1987. So I qualified in advance for the trials in that meet.
And you're only 5 kilos away from the 300 total.
Yeah, which I never was able to get. And nowadays, with the way they do the kilos, 131, 132,
Yeah.
I think I could have done 134 and 166, or maybe 33.67. I know I could have done it if it was that way, but when you have to go 2.5 kilos, so hard,
If now I'm trying to remember, if I remember correctly, from your first attempt to your second, didn't you have to take a 5 kilo jump?
5 kilo. Yep.
It had to be 5 kilo jump, and then from your second to third, it had to be at least 2.5.
2.5.
Wow.
And nowadays, I believe you can go 130, 131, 132.
Yeah, you can take anything you want now.
Yeah.
Yes.
So whole different ball game.
Yeah, you probably would have had a much better chance of getting 300 total. Now we go to 1988, and you're competing in Australia.
Yes, I got a invitation to go to the Moomba in Australia, and I competed. And while I was over there, I got very, very sick.
Oh,
and I knew during the competition I had absolutely no legs, and I knew something was wrong.
right.
Just how you know your body, I knew my body. I said, oh my God, something is not right.
Right.
I came back to the room that night. I was rooming with Jimmy Hoult, and I'm trying to think who else. There was one other guy, can't remember his name, and I was just up chucking all night.
Wow.
Finally, the coach came in and he goes, listen, have you been drinking? And I said, no, I haven't been drinking. I just don't feel good. So they wound up, make a long story short, they took me to hospital, and basically they gave me a shot of something to calm down whatever was going on. And I stopped heaving, but I did have temperature. Just wasn't, I must have caught a bug, before I went there or during when I was there. And literally, I stayed in the hotel room after that happened and just was watching the competition on TV. Zakharevich was lifting for the Russians. He was there. He was a monster. I was like, wow, this guy's huge. Same guy who snatched 212 in 88.
That's right. I remember that. then you after Australia, you went to the nationals again.
Yes. Went to the Nationals, and I got second place, and I did a PR snatch, 132.5, clean and jerk 162.5, and I totaled 295. And I was, and this is where second time I saw Roberto Urrutia. And he basically defected from Cuba, and he was the odds-on favorite to take the 75 kilo slot to go to the Seoul Olympics.
That's right. I remember him.
Yeah, and it was funny. I competed against him in New York, and I remember his first snatch was 125 kilos, and he's standing over the bar, and the time ran out. So he looks, and Murray Levin was coaching him, and he's like going like this, and they gave him the attempt over again. And I said, "What's this?" He knows there's a time clock. I was like, wow, talk about preferential treatment. It was kind of funny, but I really got along with Roberto. He's a great guy, real fun-loving guy. Wasn't cocky, wasn't anything. Just a super, super nice guy. I went to a few meets with him, and he was. I actually kept in touch with him for a while, and then we fell out of touch. But really, a great guy.
All right, that's a good story.
Yeah.
So now you start training for the Olympic trials. Now, all right. So I know I was there with you. So tell our
Yes.
listeners what it was like training at the Belleville Barbell Club.
The Belleville Barbell Club was like training in a like you were chicken on a barbecue. It was so hot.
It was
Every day, I mean, they'd have this fan at the beginning of the door with the door open, and that was it. And all you see from all the guys that were training there were puddles of water just pouring off of them.
Yeah.
Okay. It must have been 110, 120 degrees all the time. It was so difficult to train, but we did it. And when I trained for the Olympic trials, I was working as well in the heat and everything, and then would come here to train in more heat. And I told you it was one story where I decided to drink some orange juice, and which was a no-no. And when you're dehydrated, drink orange juice, I just threw up.
Right.
But I kept training because my motto was, if you're gonna stop because of something like that, you're not a winner. You just got to train through it. No pain, no gain. You just got to keep training. So I had a lot of fond memories there. I mean, it was just if you were able to train in those conditions, you can train in anything.
Yeah.
Because hot, no water. You had to bring your own water, I believe.
Yeah.
Bathroom. There was one bathroom upstairs.
Yeah.
But it was the mega of weightlifting. You had, I believe there's two platforms. You had the main platform and the one on the end.
Yeah.
You had some squat racks. You had all you needed to train like a maniac.
Yeah.
That was it.
Now I remind myself that now every time I'm doing a workout and it's a hot day and I'm sweating, I just remind myself this is nothing. This is nothing. I survived the Belleville Barbell Club. I survived that.
Yeah, because I'd like to tell it was under the bleachers.
Right.
The stadium. The bleachers had the sun baking on it and then baking on us.
That's right.
So we were like bacon.
No windows.
No windows. It was like kind of like a prison.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm surprised nobody fainted or just dropped because those conditions were rough.
I don't think we realized, I realize it now, but I don't think we realized at the time, because we were so young, what tremendous condition we must have been in to been able to train under those conditions.
Yeah, I think a lot of the athletes today, not to take anything away from them, but we were old school. You gave us a barbell and we had to train. Like when I used to train in my basement, there was one part of the house was heated, but the part of the basement that wasn't heated was where I trained.
Right.
So I'd be blowing smoke. It was cold, and I'd be doing snatches, clean jerks with a hat on,
Right.
just crazy stuff because I was obsessed with the sport. I
Right.
loved the sport. It was a 24/7 thing for me.
Right.
You know, when I was in, just to backtrack a little, when I was in high school, I would be writing down my schedule on what I'm going to do that day.
Right.
I had a paper out. I finish up my paper out, and I'd be training at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, training like crazy. I had my squat racks, my weights. My parents got me my first Olympic weight set when I was 16,
Right.
and that basically started everything. And but it was just tunnel vision from day one, and that's what you need in this sport. If you do not have 100% tunnel vision, you won't be able to make it. It has to be just all lifting.
Right.
I missed out on a ton of things probably, but I'll never regret it because I look back at the memories and say, "Oh my Lord,
Yeah.
look at what I accomplished."
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. Now tell us about the Olympic trials.
Okay, so I went to the Olympic trials in '88, and they were in Florida, and a little dejected, and I wound up getting third place behind Roberto Urrutia. He wound up winning first and going to Seoul. Second place was Gary Savage, and third was myself. I snatched 130 on my opener, and I missed 135 twice, once in the front, once behind. And I remember the one thing I remember out of the first 135 was when I missed it, Kurt White went after me and he took 135 and he flew off the stage with it. So the bar went off the stage. So they had to reconstruct everything and I had to retrain for the next 135. So I would go downstairs in the warm-up room because they had to bring the weights back on. I'm surprised because we were on a stage.
Right.
Okay. And it went flying off the stage. He just went running and it just went flying. So I had to by the time they recovered from all this, I had to basically go down and snatch 110, 120 and work back up. So by the time I got to 135, it was like 15 minutes because it was other guys taking 135 for their opener. I think we had Arn Kritsky because we were competing with the 75 kilo and the 82 fives, unfortunately. I kind of wish to this day it was just us, just the 75 kilo, but it wasn't. So then you had Jim Hyde, a whole bunch of great athletes, Jimmy Holt, who's just a ton of guys competing on that platform. So, but all in all, it was a great experience. I got third. I was a little unhappy with my lifts. I figured I could have done a little better, but it is what it is. I accomplished a lot up until this point.
Right.
Okay.
Now, was the 135, is that the most that you ever attempted in the snatch?
Yes. I attempted it 3 times, and the 3 times was in New York. In February of 1990, I attempted it, and those 2 times. It's the only time I attempted it.
Okay. Now, we go to 1989. Tell us about the Nationals.
Okay. Hold on. Let me get my notes here. Okay. 1989, I went to my 5th Nationals, and I was back in Belleville, and if you remember, Ronaldo was training me.
I remember.
And yeah, and he was giving me all these crazy training, and I think Bucky was there too. And Bucky's like, you guys, he's overtraining you, and this and that, because we were using all bizarre stuff. But I was in really, really good shape, and I wound up winning my first national championship, and I thought I was in really better shape for the clean and jerk because my first attempt in the clean jerk was 160, and I did it easily, and then I tried 65. I got rocked back, and then 67. I I tried and didn't even clean it. So, and I snatched 132. So, but that victory was my first in my fifth. It was my fifth senior national, and the first time I won first place. So I was really, really psyched. But I remember one thing. I'm on the flight home, and Rinaldi's sitting next to me. And I remember telling Mike Rinaldi, who coached me in Belleville for the champ, I said to him, I'm happy I won, but I didn't do PRs. His response was, are you kidding me? You just won nationals. You're the best in the country in your weight class. You're worried about PRs. And again, it was that tunnel vision, never happy, never content. I mean, here I am, top of the world. I won my first nationals, but I didn't make PRs. So I wasn't 100% happy, maybe 95% happy.
Yep.
But that's what makes champions.
That's right. That's right. Always got to go for the PRs.
Yes.
Now tell us about so not too long after that, you're competing at the sports festival.
Yes, that was in Oklahoma City, and went to the sports festival. I was chosen, and I did 132.5 and 160 for the 292 total, and that was at 75 kilo. And I beat Marty Zambucas. He was from the Sports Palace. I remember me and Marty were good friends. Went on a lot of international trips, and it was a close competition, but I wound up winning. And then I believe after that, the sports festival kind of like they didn't have it anymore, and they might have changed the name of it.
Yeah.
Or they might. I'm not sure, but down the road they just stopped having it.
Yeah. I don't know why. I don't know why they stopped that. But then, so then you start training. I remember this place too. You start training at St. Cecilia in Englewood, which was
Yes.
basically like we were just lifting in a locker room.
Yeah, basically you walk into a men's locker room, and there's lockers to the left and the right, and there's a platform and a barbell there, and to the left of us is basically a shower, and in the back of us was a sink. It was insane.
Yep.
I mean, and basically you were training there, George was training there, Rinaldi. We had who was the one trying to think what his name was. He was training there, short guy. I can't. He was 75 kilo as well.
I think I remember his first name, but I can't remember his last. His first name was Mike, right?
Mike Longo.
Mike Longo.
Yeah, Mike. I don't think Mike. No, it wasn't Mike.
No, Mike trained
trying
at
to think
Belleville. Mike Longo trained
Yeah,
at
Mike.
Belleville. I
Yeah,
know the guy you're
and he
talking
was.
about, but I can't recall his name.
Yeah, Mike was training on the Bobby Wenteljuski.
That's right.
And yeah, so but we when we were training, it was insanity, and this is where I was training more with you, and I was training under the tutelage of Bill Hall.
Right.
Bill started. This is where I met Bill Hall, and he started really putting the Bulgarian system into effect.
Right.
I mean, it was just. I mean, I remember doing hyper extensions with 65 kilos on my back in the science room.
Yep.
It was like crazy, you know. And so it was. He had me. I mean, really, probably in the best shape of my life going into those 1990 nationals, trying to maintain two-time national champion, which you know and I know it's hard to win it once, let alone twice.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. Now, did you know?
And go ahead.
I don't know. Just this is just like a side note. I don't think I even realized it at the time. But Vince Lombardi coached and taught. He was a teacher and a coach at that school, St. Cecilia.
Wow, yeah. That blows my mind.
Yeah.
And you knew his methods.
Oh yeah. His methods were old school, hardcore.
Oh yeah.
Yep. So you win the nationals for the second year in a row. But then in 1990.
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Yeah, 1990. I was super prepared, believe it or not, for the snatch. I really thought I was going to make 35 there, 135 there. And the clean and jerk, I was like having problems in training. I remember having gripping problems. And I'm like, the most I did in training prior to going there was 157.5. Okay. But in February, this was way prior to it. I did 160 for 5 singles in training. And that's when I tried 67.5 a few times and I kept getting knocked back with it. I just had one of those great nights. But in preparation for
Right.
the Nationals, I was in better shape snatch wise in the clean and jerk. So when we get there, what happens? My snatches are going good. I go out for my first attempt. I missed my first attempt, 127. Come back, make it, and then I miss 132.5. And at this point, I'm like super disappointed. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm thinking, man, I was thinking 30, 32, 35, 27. What's this? So then in the clean and jerk, I just caught fired. I remember doing 150 in the
Right.
warm up room before I went out for my 160, and I came up with it like Krlovich came out
Right.
with a clean. He just cleaned it. Well, it was like a broomstick. And I said, this is going to be my day. I know it. I'm going to do something special today. And I did it. The 165 on my third attempt, which I needed to beat
Yeah.
Tripolsi, to beat him. And I did that lift. And that was to maintain 2 years in a row being national champion. And he needed 167 to beat me. He still had one attempt to go. He
Yeah.
cleaned it and he missed the jerk. And I was like, yes. I was like, my God, this is not happening. 2 years in a row, two-time national champion. So I was very, very happy. But again, that little in my head, I'm like, all right, I did 292.5, but I was thinking 35 and 65. I was thinking more better in the snatch and less in the clean and jerk, and it was the reverse. It just goes to show you, you can prepare and prepare, and you never know what to expect when as soon as you get on that platform.
Yeah, you're right. The 165 clean and jerk. Now the clean was not easy, correct?
Right. It was
But
not easy.
but
It was not easy. But I knew if I cleaned it, I was going to jerk it because in training, I jerked from the racks 180 and I've neck jerked 195. I did that in West Orange, and I actually tried 200 kilos from behind the neck and I missed it. I had insane behind the back. Actually, when I was in Australia, I did 182.5 from the back neck jerk, and the Coach Schmidt, he goes, "What the hell are you doing?" I said, "I like doing these."
I was going to say, I remember watching you compete, and no matter how tough the clean was, the jerk, there was nobody that did a better split jerk than Mike Listro. Oh,
Thank you. Yeah, I had the clean was always tough, but I knew that even if I stood there for 25 seconds, I was going to blast it. And I could always make it. And after I put that weight down, I was like, oh my Lord, I was on top of the world. But again, still, Tribulsi had one
oh,
attempt to go. So, I mean, if he makes that 67.5, he beats me, but he just didn't have enough in
right,
the tank
right.
to make it.
Okay, I
So,
didn't realize that he still had another attempt. Okay. Now, no,
yeah, yep.
now 1991 is when you run into the knee issue.
Yeah, I had the torn cartilage, and I was training with it, and it was very tough. So, Coach Bulgarian Bill Hall Abaziev made basically a routine with mostly a
Right.
ton of clean pulls, a ton of lifts, and basically barely any squats. So he really didn't do much of any squatting at all for this competition for the nationals
Right.
because my knees just couldn't take it. So wound up going to Minnesota, and this was my 7th national championship, and I snatched 127.5, clean jerked 155, and I totaled 282.5 for 4th place. And actually, Jeff Macy, the guy that competed the year before, he got 3rd place, and this time he got 1st place. And his winning lifts, believe it or not, were 130 and 160. And if somehow, some way, I tried 130, missed it, and somehow, some way, if I could have pulled off a 60, which I tried and wasn't even close because I didn't have no leg strength, I could have been a 3-time national champions. But would have, could have, don't do it.
Yeah. So then you have to have the knee surgery.
Yeah. The knee surgery I got in May of 91, and that kept me out for some time. And basically, I didn't compete in any meets in 92. 93, I think I competed in the Jersey. I think it was one meet. It was in Gutenberg. It was I think the Jersey State Championships. 94, 95, started competing. And this is when I met,
Right.
was meeting Leo Totten. And I was training for, what was it, Gold Coast Barbell Club, I believe it was. And I was training under them. And I had Alfred Risk. He was training. So, and then 1996, I went to Georgia, Savannah, Georgia, and that was basically my first real international meet since '91. And I wound up placing 2nd in my category, 75, and I did 125 and 157, and the competition was 76 kilos.
They changed the weight class.
And I did 282.5. Yeah. Yeah, they started changing the weight class. And then the following year, I went to my last senior nationals, and that was in Minneapolis. And I actually competed at an overweight 77. The weight class was 77, and I think I weighed 78 in change. And I snatched 130, clean and jerk 157, and my total was 287, and I got 2nd place. And that was my 8th senior national. And I remember, again, if I could have done the 160, I could have had the 290, and I could have basically won the meet. Because the reason why I stepped up to 70 from 77, Tim McRae was lifting at 77. So I figured I had a better chance of competing. And that was my only real meet at 80, I think it was 83 kilos. I think that was the weight class. So I wind up, doing the 130 and 157. And that was my 8th and last senior national.
At a pretty big disadvantage because you were way underweight for that weight class. You were like, you were like 5 kilos.
Yeah, way underweight. Yep. Yeah, and I was having tremendous problems. That was another thing I was running into. These meets, I was having a lot of trouble cutting the weight to 165, then 170, and in the last meet, the Garden State Games, I think I weighed right on the nose. I think it was 77 kilos right on the nose, or it might have been 76 back then. But I remember right on the nose, and this is how I knew it was going to be my last meet. On the way to the competition, I was driving to the meet. If you can picture this, I'm dehydrated, and I'm like, I just want to get to the meet, and my car's transmission blew. So here I am on Route 80. The cop is saying, "What's wrong?" I said, "I think my transmission blew." So he gets a tow truck for me. This guy tows me to the meet in Gutenberg, and I told him, I said, "I'll call you when I'm done. You can tow me back." So it was the most bizarre thing. This is how you could tell this was it for me. So I competed, and I won, and I did 120 in the snatch and 145 in the clean and jerk for a total of 265 kilos. And during that time, just making the weight, plus the weights were starting to go down a little. I just wasn't strong enough anymore. Had everything going against me, and the enthusiasm to make it to the level where I was before. I knew I just reality set in. I said, you know what? I'm never going to make these big lifts ever again.
Wow.
And that was it. I packed it in. Well, never competed ever again. Yeah. Yeah. So I went out winning.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? I know I can't do better than this. My body's wearing down. The weight class is tough. The new crew is coming in.
By that time,
my time is done.
35,
and that was
35 years old?
Let's see, 99, say 24.
35. So,
minus,
yep,
yes,
that's about
35.
the time when
Yes.
most athletes start slowing down.
Yeah, and but basically I had my weights in my garage, but I just loved training. But the competition part, I was still going a little ballistic in the garage, doing crazy stuff, but competing wise, I was done. Now, during this time from like 2000 to like 2010, Mark Kappas from Pennsylvania, the longtime friend, he had me coaching him. And he was trying to push me into the Masters. And I kept telling him, I said, Mark, I'm done. I'm done. I'm just done. I know when I was done. And just never, he wound up competing. He wound up getting hurt, and then he had to stop competing. So, but I went to a few Master Opens with him, and it was just the desire. When the desire and the vision is not there, that's it. Even if you're at 97%, you need that 3%. You always got to be 100%. And your body's got to be working right. Your mind's got to be working right, because your mind is everything. You can look at that barbell, and as soon as you grab it, if one thing goes in your head that I'm not going to make it, you're not going to make that lift. It could be one split second, and that's it. You're not going to make it.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Mike, after you retired, what kind of did you have any hobbies that you pursued, or were you mainly just
biggest? I got to say this. There was kind of like, you remember when Jordan retired from the NBA? Then he went to baseball, and then he went from baseball. He didn't know what to do with himself. Golfing. There was a void left inside of me that I think till this day I never filled. It basically did a lot of training downstairs. Then, because I live in a condo, I had a platform down there. And again, it was crazy because sometimes, with the garage, it'd be like 20 degrees, and my neighbors are watching me train, and I'm breathing smoke, and they're like, this guy is crazy. Or it's like 100 degrees, I got the door open, I'm sweating bullets, and they're like, why are you doing this? I said, because I just love to, train. But then I started helping Mark. I was kind of like his coach, but that void inside of me, you can never. It was really, really difficult to let. I mean, my mind was saying, "Oh, I can do it, I can do it," but the body was saying something else. So I really never replaced it. I mean, I got into, I could say, playing softball. You know, um, for the town. So I kind of got into that, but I was still, still training with the weights. You know, I was still doing that. But then the big thing happened to me, and this where I really stopped with the weights was August of 2012. I was playing basketball on a beautiful summer night, and I was dribbling, and next thing I know is,
oh man,
my right calf snapped. Blew my calf out. First thing I thought, it was my Achilles, but it wasn't. It was probably the worst injury I ever had, job wise and competition wise, because I couldn't walk. It was kind of like a weird thing, Mark. There was another kid shooting hoops, and I thought he threw a rock at my back of my calf, because that's what it says. When it snaps, it's the equivalent of somebody throwing a rock at your calf, because it just snaps and it's like that.
Right.
And for the next 2 months, I was out of work. Couldn't work, and then I had a strain to my bicep tendon. So then I started getting really all these injuries. That was 2012. And basically, my biggest challenge was 2012 to 2020 was I retired in 2020, was surviving every day at work. I had the calf, that I was having problems with. It would stiffen up constantly. Then I had the strain, the bicep tendonitis. So all these little things.
Right.
And I think it was the right foot that I split on. So there was so much pressure on it, and maybe just the wear and tear from,
right.
All these years that did it.
Wow.
And it finally just snapped like a celery stick. I couldn't believe it. I was like, and then, and you know me, the next day,
Right.
what do? I don't call in sick. I go to work limping. And not only limping, they took me out on inspection. And my boss is telling my postmaster, he goes, this guy can't even walk. I'm trying to go up a hill. It took like 9 hours to do the route. He goes, I think Mike's going to be out for a while. And then that same day, I went to a doctor, and they said, listen, all you have to do is rest it for like 2 months, and the calf will naturally reattach. But you got to rest, nothing else. So I told them at work, I got to take at least 2 months off. And during that time, I was watching the Olympics in London. So I had my foot up, and I was watching the London Olympics, and that was a treat, watching that. So, but yeah, from 12 to 20, after that basketball incident, that was it. Never really touched a weight again after that.
Wow.
After 2012, so I haven't touched a weight in
you mentioned
11 years.
The feeling you had of someone throwing a rock. You felt like someone threw a rock at you. I know exactly what you're describing. Because the only serious injury I really ever had was I tore the tendon in my elbow, and I had that same. I had the weight over my head when the tendon snapped, and I actually thought that someone threw a weight at my elbow. But then, I put the weight down, and I actually started looking around to see who threw a weight at me. But nobody would throw a weight at me. Why would someone throw a weight at me?
Yeah.
And then I realized, wow, I started to feel it in my elbow. And I realized, wow, I think the tendon just snapped. It's a strange feeling.
Yeah, it was the weirdest feeling, because I was like, oh my Lord, what am I going to do? I'm like, this has never happened to me before. I mean, I've had injuries, but not ones I can't walk. And it was my right foot. So it affected my driving. It affected everything. So, and I mean, I went through hell for 8 years in the Postal Service. And again, using same thing with tunnel vision. Every day I'd be like, you can make it, make believe you're training. And every day was a mission to make it through that day. And I just kept going and going and going. So, and I think that's what Olympic weightlifting taught me, that you have a job to do, and the job was to train at 100% or nothing at all. And when I go to work, it was the same mentality, 100% or nothing at all. I work part-time now, same thing. I always want to challenge myself in anything I do, and I think that's important in competing, setting goals, setting PRs, even if it's 1 kilo, just goal-oriented. And one thing I could say, I have all the diaries, probably 70 diaries from the day I started training to the last day. Diaries of everything, vitamins, competitions.
You have it all written down.
Training, everything, what I ate, what I weighed. Everything written down. So when I pass away someday, they're going to be like, oh, my Lord.
Yeah.
This guy was insane.
Well, Mike, it was a pleasure to have
Jokingly.
this interview. Been wanting to do it for.
Yeah, and I want to thank you, Mark. It brought back. I had goosebumps
Oh yeah,
during
the
this whole
memories
time
are
because it
always
brought
there.
back a
You got to hold on to
lot
those
of great
memories.
memories.
Yeah. If we don't hold on to the memories, what do we
Yeah.
have?
Yep.
Yeah.
What? Right. Exactly. And you know what? My mom always
Yeah.
says that to me, even though she's going through what she's going, she can remember. And that's because once you stop remembering, then you don't have anything.
Right.
And every year, I always post that 1990 national victory because I want that memory. I'll be like, hey, 50 years from now, you can't take it away from me. I was a
Right.
two-time national champion. This was an accomplishment that I did
That's
on my
right.
own.
And
It
some
was
people
me
kind of
against the
criticize that and
barbell.
say, "Oh, well, you're living in the past." But I don't think having happy memories. I don't see that as living in the past. I think you're remembering something that was very important in your life, and thank God we have those memories.
Yeah, and it's something that I'll never want to let go. And a lot of people ask me about it, and now, I wasn't the type that'll be like, "Oh, I'm a two-time national champ." Even like when I was delivering mail, a lot of the people there was newspaper
Right.
articles. People would be, and they would see the community life, and they'd be like, "Is this you?" And I said,
Right.
"Yeah." And they said, "Why didn't you tell us?" And I said, "Well, I'm just not that type, unless now." My other people,
Right.
they would be like, "Oh, I'm this, I'm that." I wasn't just that. I wasn't that way. I was the type
Well,
that
that's one of the things
unless
I always
somebody
liked about
asked
Olympic
me, I would
weightlifting
tell them.
was that most of the Olympic lifters were very humble and, like you said, very few of the lifters that would brag about their
Yep,
accomplishments. It was very much like a family, like a fraternity kind of an Olympic lifting. Oh, that's the guy's name, right?
yep.
I remember. Yep, I
Tommy
do remember
Mashagna. Yep, yep. And he was part of the jumping team that was jumping after
that.
I competed that 165 clean and jerk, and he was like, yeah. Everybody was going berserk after I put the weight down. Never forget that. And I had Lou
It's a
DeMarco. He
great
was
memory.
coaching me. Artie Dressler was told. They were
All
all
right,
going
Mike.
berserk.
It was great
Good
interviewing you,
moment.
and good
Yeah.
to talk with you again after so many years.
Yeah, and I thank you I really appreciate you doing this for me, and we'll keep in touch more, and looking at you
Yeah, I
looking
will
great shape, and
definitely.
and say hi to Bill for me, and because I haven't spoken to
Yeah,
him in a lot of years and a
I
lot of
can't
fond
wait to
memories.
have him
Tell him I still have
hear
the
this interview.
diaries.
He's gonna love it. He'll love it. Okay, take care of yourself, Mike.
Yeah,
God
yeah.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com. Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, aka the Football History Dude, and I wanted to thank you for stopping by to listen to another episode here on the Sports History Network. Our podcasters are passionate about uncovering and sharing sports stories from yesteryear. And if you didn't know it already, we have over 30 shows across the network covering all sorts of sports history topics. In fact, here's a glimpse into one of our awesome podcasts here on the network.
Hello, football friends. This is Darren Hayes of the Pigskin Dispatch podcast, and I'd like to invite you to the portal of positive football history, Pigskin Dispatch and pigskindispatch.com. We talk about everything that centers around the game of American football, expert discussions, the origins of the games, the great players, teams, and coaches, and more, and some great guests and insights from experts. We have new episodes 3 to 4 times a week, and you can find us on sportshistorynetwork.com, pigskindispatch.com, or your favorite podcast provider.
How about that? I bet you're super hyped to go listen to that new podcast, right? Well, to learn about this show and all the other podcasts on the network, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com sportshistorynetwork.com/podcast. Again, that's sportshistorynetwork.com/podcast. Head over there today to find your next favorite sports history podcast.